everybody. Raina here with our next episode of Book Banter. We will be talking this evening with Matt McMann. The first two books in his new Monsterious series just came out a couple of weeks ago, and there's two more on their way. So if you love these, there will be more. Matt was a professional musician. He has hiked in the Pacific Northwest. He has cruised Loch Ness. There's so much going on here. I was so excited to talk to him about all of his things, his family, and his books. So if you have any questions for Matt at any point during the event, type them in the comments and we will answer them as we go. And without further ado, hi, Matt.
Hello, Raina. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining me. This has been like a long time coming, almost a full year, because we were at Children's Institute together last June. I'm about to go again in like a week and a half. So
great.
Yeah, it'll be fun. At that time, you already knew these books were coming out, and you kind of like mentioned them to me. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I was able to get my hands on an ARC, and I'm a huge fan. So.
Oh, I'm so grateful. That means a lot. Thank you.
I was not a Goosebumps kid.
I was not a Goosebumps kid either.
So like I came to it way late. Some of them were out when I was younger, but they never crossed paths. And I read a couple of them when I was older, and I was like, I really like this, but also this is not me. I'm past this. Like this isn't like, I can't go back to this now.
Yep. Understood.
So I'm wondering, what was your like motivation? Where did you read spooky kids books, or like
my desire to write these kind of books came from the fact that I was a scared kid. So I was afraid of almost everything when I was a kid. I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of bullies. I was afraid of the woods. I was afraid of my parents' basement. But I loved spooky stories. And I think the reason I loved them so much when I was a kid is because they allowed me to experience fear, but in a safe and fun way. And then when I saw the characters in these spooky stories face their fears, it gave me courage to face my own. So then when I decided to write novels late in life, I had to think about, well, what kind of novels do I actually even want to write? And that's when I remembered those spooky, monstery mystery stories that I loved when I was a kid. And I thought, you know what? Yes, that's the kind of book that I want to write, because I want to give kids today the same kind of spooky fun, and also that same kind of dash of courage to kids today that I needed and got out of these books when I was a kid. So that's kind of the genesis of why I write spooky monster mystery stories.
There you go. And they're also like this dash of a sense of humor that I particularly really loved. I don't know. As a kid, I was a much more serious kid. I don't think I would be like, oh no, I'm only here for the scary mystery part. But now I'm into it. Like I super appreciate humor much more. I don't know what I was doing when I was younger. I was like,
you were just a very serious child right now.
I was the one like making sure everything was in a row and like making, I don't know, maybe we'd call that OCD.
Oh, possibly.
Grown past it now, though.
But good. I'm glad some of that humor came through. I like to put a dash of humor into my books. I don't particularly consider myself a very funny person, but I really enjoy when I can find some ways to interject humor, because I think when you're writing thrillers, when you're writing scary stuff, when you're writing intense things, it's so nice to give the reader that little breath of fresh air, that little emotional break, that little bit of humor tossed in there to give them that lift, and then they're ready to dive back into that intensity again. It's like seasoning in a dish that I think just heightens the flavor.
This is beautiful. Obviously, there's a reason you're the writer, because that was very tasty.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
When you when you set out to write these, did you think of it as this like series, or were you just writing like one story and then you're like, whatever, we'll see where it goes?
Great question. So I had written 3 novels before I wrote Monsterious, 3 novels that didn't go anywhere, and there's stories behind each of those that were rejected and all these things. And it was about that time, after 3 novels in that didn't go anywhere, that my wife, Lisa, for those of you that don't know, my wife is New York Times bestselling author Lisa McMann, who's got her 30th book comes out in just a few weeks.
It's hard to even imagine writing that many books. I mean, it's amazing.
It's crazy. She's the most creative person I know. And she's written her most popular middle grade series is the Unwanted series. She's currently writing the Forgotten Five series. Her most popular young adult series was the Wake trilogy. So anyway, my wife Lisa was reading an article to me out loud, and she mispronounced the word mysterious and said monsterious instead. And I immediately said, oh, that sounds like a great middle grade book title. And she said, no, it's a whole series and you should write it.
Nice.
So I thought, monsterious, monsters, mysteries. I love monsters and mysteries. This sounds like a great series. I would love to take a whack at this. But since I started with the idea for a series in mind, instead of an individual book title, it gave me the rare opportunity to go, well, what kind of series would I even want to write? What kind of series would this be? And there's arguably 3 main types of series. There's what's called a dynamic series, which is the most popular and the most familiar, where you have a consistent group of characters go through a multi-book story arc, a la Lord of the Rings. Then you have a static style series, where a consistent cast of characters goes through episodic journeys, book to book, a la Nancy Drew, Sherlock Holmes. Then you have an anthology style series, which is where the books are tied together by a place or an idea or a theme, but each is a standalone adventure with a unique cast of characters, so they can be read in any order. And so I actually thought, what appeals to me is an anthology style series. One, because I love origins, I love beginnings. I always love the first book of a series the best because it creates the world and it feels new and it's fresh. But I also love the comfort and the familiarity that comes with having a series. So I think an anthology style series kind of blends the best of both worlds. You kind of know what you're getting with an anthology style series. There's that comfort and familiarity, but because each book is a standalone adventure, each one also feels fresh and exciting because you got new characters, a new setting, and a new situation. And I was also intrigued by the idea of being able to write about any kid, any monster, anywhere in the world, and the kind of freedom that you don't necessarily have in a traditional dynamic style series. And so I thought that's the approach that I want to take to this series, is making an anthology style series. And so that's how I pitched it. So I had done my first 3 pitches of my original books that none of them went anywhere. But I thought, you know what? I really need to pitch this series differently because of the vision that I have for a series as a whole, as opposed to here's a single book that has series potential.
Right.
So I actually wrote 1 entire manuscript. I wrote 2 full outlines for 2 additional books in the series. And then I also wrote 5 additional 1-paragraph each ideas for other potential books in the series and put it together with a vision letter. And so I put that in a whole pitch package and sent that to my agent. And he's like, stop the presses. I think the one. And after 3 failed attempts, it sold immediately in a 4-book deal to Penguin Random House.
You just had to build you had to set the entire stage. Like, you couldn't be like, here's this idea I got. You had to give the whole package to them and show them really what it could be.
Yes, that is exactly true.
I say from a bookseller's point of view, this anthology type series is wonderful because let's say we've sold out of number 1, but we have number 3, no big deal. here, if you like this, you can read the other ones. It doesn't matter where we are. Often with series, and it's perpetual issue, right? The first one will sell the most because that's how you get people started. That's how you get people started. And then, of course, that's the one you sell out of the most. And then you'll have the second one or the third one and be like, well, I'll just wait. And like, okay, well, I've lost you. Like, potentially, like, not your fault. I don't have it. But this anthology allows you to just jump in wherever. And I love that. Do you like get inspiration for some of these from real like myths or real stories you've heard? Or I know you put in your bio that you cruised Loch Ness, and I love that you put that in there, because for some people that could just be like a thing you did on vacation, and that's great. I mean, it's cool, don't get me wrong,
Right?
It's awesome, but like you add it in there, and it adds the one little like 4 or 5 words adds so much character and so much like questions and so much like mystery and so much like whatever. So now you have to make up this grand story as to how you were like, it wasn't just like you had a free day and I guess you'll go on a cruise. That's not going to work.
Well, all right, two different questions there. So as a kid, I would check out every book in the library at my school on Bigfoot and the Abominable Snowman and the Loch Ness Monster and vampires and werewolves. And so I was a big fan of Nessie, as we like to call her, since I was a kid. And so when I had a chance to go to Scotland on a trip to visit my future son-in-law, where he was studying abroad there with my wife and my daughter. Nice. And I'm like, guys, we're in Scotland. You know where we have to go, right? So we took a trip up through the Highlands. We were staying in Glasgow. We drove up through the Highlands, and incredible country, incredible scenery, and went to Inverness, the little town right on the loch. And then we hired a boat to take us around and cruise the loch. And it was a game changer. It was definitely a bucket list for me. It was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah.
So, but in terms of inspiration for the specific stories in the Monsterious series, they came from very pedestrian places. So I think that's one of the charms for me about these kinds of stories, because I love taking very common things and then extrapolating fantastic stories out of them. For example, when I came up with this concept for this anthology style monster mystery middle grade series called Monsterious, that's what I had. I had no stories yet at that initial point. So I had to start brainstorming, well, what kind of stories would I want to tell in this Monsterious series? And at that time, Lisa found a picture on the internet of a gargoyle statue in front of a roller coaster. And she just emailed it to me. And she's like, this is kind of weird. You want to do anything with this? And so I was like, oh, that's intriguing. And I did some research, and it turned out to be an advertisement for a spooky ride at some amusement park. And I thought, oh, a spooky haunted house ride at an amusement park. What a cool setting for a Monsterious book. But a setting is not a story, as we know. So then I thought, okay, well, what unusual or strange or spooky thing could happen in this cool setting that would make for an intriguing story? And I thought, oh, well, what if the ride breaks down? I thought, well, okay, that's great. That's a good start, but it's not enough. What's next? Then I thought, oh, well, what if the kids somehow, and I didn't know how at the time, got trapped overnight inside this haunted house ride and they couldn't get out? I thought, oh, that's fun. That's intriguing. I don't know how I'll do that, but that sounds fun. But it's still not enough. And then I came up with the idea of, oh, well, what if as they're running around desperately trying to find their way out, they uncover this hidden staircase that leads down to this spooky crypt beneath the ride? I thought, oh, that's better. Yeah. That's better. But I still need one more puzzle piece to the story. And then that's when I came up with the idea of, oh, what if somehow, and I didn't know how at the time, the monsters in the ride all came to life. And then that's when I knew I had a story. And that's what became Escape from Grimstone Manor, about 3 friends who get trapped overnight in a haunted house amusement park ride and discover the monsters are real. So that's the genesis of that story. And then for Snatcher, the Snatcher of Raven Hollow, which also came out on the same day, May 9. Lisa and I were driving years ago down the highway, and we saw an abandoned stroller along the road. And Lisa, being Lisa, because she has a little bit of a dark sense of humor, said, "Ooh, what if there was a baby in there?" And there wasn't a baby in there, as far as we know. We didn't actually stop, but we assumed there was no baby and that was just abandoned trash. But all these years later, I thought, when I was brainstorming Monsterious books, I thought of that for some reason about that abandoned stroller. But I thought, well, yeah, but how do you make a story about an abandoned stroller? What's so interesting about that? But then it occurred to me, oh, wait, well, what if the stroller was abandoned because the baby that used to ride in it had mysteriously disappeared? I thought, oh, that's intriguing, but it's still not a story yet. And then I came up with the idea of, oh, well, wait, what if other babies in the same small town had also mysteriously vanished without trace? And then I thought, well, wait, what if the kids that found the abandoned stroller started to investigate what was going on with these missing babies and realized that a monster was responsible for taking these babies? And then the final piece of the puzzle that came into place was, well, what if they told the adults what's going on? Yeah, but of course, the adults don't believe them. And then the kids realize, oh my gosh, it's up to us to find and rescue these babies. That's when I knew I had a story. And that's what became the Snatcher of Raven Hollow, about two friends who realize that a monster is responsible for the baby disappearances in their small town, but no one believes them. So they came very pedestrian places.
They're just, you need that little spark, right? Whatever that little thing is, and then you start asking questions about it, and there you go. You piece it together. So I've learned a few things about you telling me about these books, not just about the books, but your school visits must be amazing. Because I learned, right? We learned all the different types of series. We've learned a lot of things about not just your books, but your writing, and I love that. So I've
gotten some very positive feedback. Thankfully, I'm very grateful. I've done 20 school visits so far, and it's a blast talking to the kids because they're so excited, especially those 3rd through 6th graders, which are kind of the sweet spot for this particular series. Though I still love books like these, and I'm 53. Yeah. So, but it's so fun to talk to kids, not only about these books and about just fun, spooky monster mystery component to them, but so many of these kids are interested in the behind the scenes. Well, how do you put a story together, and where do you get your ideas? And how do you make good characters? And they're, even at a young age, these kids are so creative and they have such good insight that it's really fun to be able to talk to them at age appropriate level about writing craft, and to see them really soak that up and get excited about it. So it's been really fun to do those school visits.
Yeah, that it's fun. Like, so many kids I know tell stories anyway. You're telling the story. You're coming up with it, and sometimes it's because I want to know how this vase broke, and the story is wild. But also, like, you made that up, like you invented it. So sometimes it's for good, sometimes it's not, but the skill is there. And then just letting them know that, like, you're already there. Like, so many of them are already there. They just don't think of it as writing a story or,
Right. And I tell that story too, to help kids to realize that, I show in my school visits, my very first slide is a picture of me in 3rd grade. And in the 5th grade, go, this is me when I was your age, and this is where my love of story began, and spooky stories, and in writing. And then I tell the story about, how in 7th grade we had a creative writing contest, and, and I won this creative writing contest out of everybody in 7th grade. And then again in 8th grade we had it, and I won again. And my teacher read part of my story out loud to the class and said, if the beginning or the rest of the story was as good at the beginning, I would have suggested this be published. And how that made me believe that, wow, oh my gosh, my teacher thinks I'm good at this and it's really fun. I think I want to be an author. And so that I want to communicate to kids that even though you're a kid and you're still in school, you can start writing stories right now. And you can do this if you want. You can start learning a craft that you can do for the rest of your life. And that's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got you won awards, or they got picked to be published in school. 7th and 8th, you said you won the contest.
So we had a 7th grade wide creative writing contest where everybody in the 7th grade had to write a short story.
Right.
And so I wrote the best short story I could, and my teacher, my English teacher for 7th grade, picked my story as the winner out of all of the 7th grade.
Nice.
And then we repeated that contest again in 8th grade. So everybody in the 8th grade had to write a short story, and I won again. And that's when my teacher went, and he told me afterwards, he's like, I was totally not going to let you win again because you won last year, but I just kind of had to because you had the best story. And that's when he read the beginning of my story out loud to the class and suggested if the rest of the story had been as good as the beginning of the story, which it was totally not, I would suggest it be published. So it wasn't like technically any award. It was just in the school.
Right.
But that teacher had so much influence on me, gave me a sense of belief in myself and in my ability as a writer, because as you well know, it's a tough business.
Yeah.
Being a writer, you've got to have a really thick skin. You've got to really believe in yourself. You've got to put up with a ton of rejection. I faced an incredible amount of rejection before I broke through and got my Mysterious series published. And part of the reason I was able to endure and push through and get through all that rejection, it honestly stemmed from back when I was in 7th and 8th grade, and my English teachers really believed in me.
Yeah, that's so heartwarming. I love it.
Go teachers. We love our teachers.
Absolutely. So between 7th, 8th grade and now, you were writing, but not for all that time, I'm guessing, question mark. What filled in those gaps?
Yeah. Well, okay. So in 7th and 8th grade, 8th grade was when I decided, you know what? I think I want to be an author. Then in high school, I really got into music. And I decided when I went to college that that's what I wanted to pursue. And I got my degree in music and vocal performance. And then after that, I became a professional musician after I graduated. And I did that for 26 years. And it was doing all kinds of things. And then at the end of 26 years of doing the professional music thing, I was getting really burned out and tired. And that's when Lisa said, hey, and she'd been a New York Times bestseller many times over by this point, had a lot of books out. And this was about 5 years ago or so. She said, hey, you always wanted to kind of write books when you were a kid. What do you think about going back to that and starting to try to write books? And that's really what made the switch happen. But I'm a chronic overanalyzer, over planner.
Okay.
So I was thinking about, starting to write books. So here's me writing long lists and all kinds of documents and doing all kinds of research about what it might look like for me to begin to finally start to maybe think about actually putting words on a page.
Yes.
And Lise finally got frustrated with me, and we went away for a weekend at a hotel. And she said, we got to the hotel room and she said, okay, listen, we're not leaving until you write the first chapter of your book. And that she actually held me captive.
Yeah, she set you up.
The first chapter of the book. But that was exactly the push that I needed to get me started.
Yeah, something that just kind of forces you to get started.
Yes.
I am familiar with this problem that you're talking about, where I'm ready to go, but I haven't done it yet. And you want to see the plan. I got pages.
Exactly.
I'm ready. I know exactly how it's going to go down. As soon as thing happens, this is going to be great. So I mean, kudos to Lisa for just being able to read that so well. I just been like, okay, hotel, yay, this is going to be a great weekend. And I'm going to the pool. So she's like, you need to write this down. There's a reason we came to a resort with a spa. I'm out. I'm going to take my time. I don't know where you went, but I'm just, she knew what was going on.
Yep, she did.
Oh. Do you, as a professional musician, I'm assuming you spent some time, all this PR I'm assuming you did that as a musician a bit, or maybe some experience with the rejection. Do you feel like any of that, like, did that help now?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
just knowing that you'll be fine. Like, it sucks, but you're gonna live.
Yes to all of the above. The majority of my career, I ended up spending doing music, leading bands, leading worship in big churches, planning services, different ones across the country. So that was a component of it. There was a component of it where I did a one-man musical documentary on the history of American popular culture called The Heart of Rock and Roll. I traveled around to colleges and I performed this one-man show.
Look, some people might be like, what is that crap? But I want to see a video recording. Do we have this anywhere? Can I watch it?
It does exist. It's me performing in costume, in character, impersonating Chuck Berry and Barry Manilow and Bruce Springsteen and the Beatles and the Sex Pistols and you name it. And that video is tightly under wraps and will not be made available to the general public.
Everything you're describing is everything I wanted it to be. So one day, if we continue this relationship, this you keep writing books and we'll keep doing events and selling them. One day, maybe I will gain the trust of, under oath, some sort of non-disclosure agreement that I could just maybe a preview or a bit. I'm gonna keep.
Maybe come out to Tempe, Arizona, where we live. You can come over. We'll have a glass of wine and we'll pop in the video after I've commandeered your phone.
Yeah, fair.
You will not be able to record this. And
all right,
look.
One day I'm going to find myself in Tempe, Arizona. Much like you found yourself close enough to Loch Ness where you're like, we have to go. And I'm going to be close enough and I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, we have to go. Like, I have got to send this message because it is possible that this could happen. I will bring a bottle of wine.
Sounds like a deal.
Okay. One day. So you did spend quite a long time doing all different kinds of music stuff, evidently.
Yeah, the bulk of it was in churches, like I said, contemporary bands and that kind of scene. I did the Heart of Rock and Roll one-man show. I sang on a cruise ship at one time. I did a mini tour in Austria at one time, as one does.
Yeah.
And I sang at the International Twins Convention one year. That is a real thing. When I was approached to do music for this, I went, time out. There's an International Twins Convention? Sure. And I was informed that, yes, there actually is. Every year they have one and it moves around. And it happened to be in the town near where I was living. And I was approached to do music for it. And I was like, why not? How do you say no to doing music at the International Twins Convention? So I can remember very clearly being on stage in an auditorium, looking out and seeing two of everyone. It was very spooky.
I can see that. Okay, so there's a book in there somewhere. Like that scene needs to make it into a book at some point.
I think you're right.
Okay, my question about the twin convention is that if you're not a twin, could they, no offense to your musical stylings, but not find a set of twins to do the music?
I think that is a very fine question. I think that would have been preferable. I was not in on the selection committee that decided to approach me for this. So I just decided, hey, they're offering me the gig. I'm not going to question it. I'm going to take the gig.
You're like, maybe they don't know there's just one of me. I'm going to show up and see what happens.
Yeah, maybe so.
I like it. No. See, and that's just the stuff we talk about.
Yep, I can guarantee you, of all the interviews I've done, I have not had this lengthy of a conversation about the International Twins Convention. So bravo, Raina.
I mean, there's a first time for everything. So you'll be ready for next time, though.
Absolutely.
Whenever it happens. Your kids are older now.
Yes.
Have they read the books? Were you thinking about them at all when you wrote it, since they're closer to the age of the books?
Have they read them? Yes, they have. They are 29 and 26.
Yeah.
So was I thinking about them? Not really, because they were already adults by the time I started writing these books. I was more in tune with one, my younger nieces and nephews, two, the kids that I had seen for over 15 years watching my wife's career and going to all her events.
Mm-hmm.
And three, I'm still pretty in tune with my inner 10-year-old. I feel like I'm just a grown-up kid. So I was able to really kind of tap into, man, what did I feel like? What did I think? What was I afraid of? How did I feel back when I was this age of my, 11, 12-year-old protagonists in these stories? So that was really more the tie-in that I kind of focused on in order to kind of get into this headspace to find the middle grade voice.
Well, I can tell, like, just from the few times that we've talked and met, you said earlier you don't think you're funny, like you don't consider yourself funny, but you are very fun. Like you still, so you're saying like you feel like you're still that inner kid, and that comes through in a great way.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, you seem like the type of person who can find a little fun in whatever's happening or wherever you are. No,
I hope so.
Right. I'm sure there's plenty of life situations where you're like, I don't know about that, but you come across that way, so it's working.
Thank you.
Yeah. So speaking of your kids, yes. I love that both you and Lisa at the bottom of your bios plug your kids. Like, I love it. You guys connect because your son is an artist and your daughter is an actor, correct? So, correct. And also I will tell you another story that is was a secret, but is no longer a secret because I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
When last year, I guess, I was talking to Lisa and she says to someone else, she's like, I'm Nancy Drew's mom. I heard her say it. Okay. I registered it in my mind and let it go. I was like, I don't know what this is in reference to. We're just going to go on talking. Sure. And that was fine. And then when we were getting ready to do Book Banter, which we did in the fall, mm-hmm. She said it again. And I was like, I really should Google this. Because it was like her bio, I think, that I had read was linked to y'all's daughter, but it didn't say like that she was an actress, but like who she played. And so I finally Googled it and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are Nancy Drew's parents. Like she was being literal. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what this is. So that was my secret, pretending I knew something I did not know in front of Lisa McMann story that now everyone knows. So
that is a great story. I love that story. And yes, we are a quirky artistic family, I would say. So I was a musician for all those years, and now I'm a writer. My wife is an author, wonderful author. Our son is a freelance illustrator and graphic designer, which he does professionally out in Sacramento, California. And our daughter is Kennedy McMann. She is an actor, and yes, she plays Nancy Drew on the CW network TV show Nancy Drew, which the 4th and final season premieres on May 31st, so very soon. And now her latest thing is, because she's already, the way the filming schedule works, she's done and wrapped. So season 4 is in the can. She's completely done, even though the 4th season is just about to start airing. And so in the time that she's wrapped the show, she actually got a guest spot on The Good Doctor, the ABC show, The Good Doctor, mm-hmm. that many people may be familiar with. And she did a guest starring episode as the Good Doctor. Sean Murphy is the character's mm-hmm. name, Freddie Highmore's character, as his lawyer in a particular episode where Dr. Sean Murphy got in some legal trouble. He ended up needing a lawyer, and my daughter Kennedy played his lawyer who suffered from extreme OCD that impacted her personal and professional life in the same way that autism impacts Dr. Sean Murphy's personal and professional life, which is the heart of the show. And it was what's called a backdoor pilot, which means it functioned as a regular episode of The Good Doctor and also doubled as a pilot episode for a proposed spin-off show for ABC called The Good Lawyer, which would star my daughter Kennedy. So
yes, fingers crossed.
We're sitting and waiting to hear whether or not ABC is going to pick up that show and make it its own show in the future.
Wow, that is very exciting. So yes, I will keep her in my thoughts and continue like I'm just waiting for it to be announced because of course you guys are awesome and she's awesome and I'm throwing lucky glitter your way.
I'll take all the lucky glitter that we can get. If anybody else wants to increase the potency of said lucky glitter, they can go out on Hulu, which is where The Good Doctor streams, and look for the episode called The Good Lawyer, which is in this season. It came out, I think, March 13th of this year, which is 2023, for those of you who are watching in the future. And and the more streams that gets, the more it signals to ABC that, hey, people are into this character and into the show, and we should give her own series.
Nice. Okay. I'm going to put a link to the IMDb.
Oh, you're the best.
The Good Lawyer.
And thank you, Nicole. I see you in the comments. Thank you for
Googling. So that will take you to information about that specific episode so you can figure out where, like, go to Hulu and read all about it and watch the episode. So.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you for doing that.
And okay, so the last thing I definitely want to get to is these Mysterious card game, which was drawn and designed, or drawn at least by your son. And I've just recently, this is also weirdly embarrassing, I tried to play Pokemon with my son when he was younger. I tried to play Magic the Gathering at one point. I didn't get it. I'm staring at the cards and people have tried to explain it to me and I don't understand. And I just recently, literally 4 weeks ago, understood that you were trying to attack me and not my little guys. And then my little guys were just 10 years. My son is 16. So 10 years, maybe. I've been trying to figure this out and I just Mom doesn't get it. I'm sorry. I'll get you the cards. And I finally get it. So weirdly, this came up. I saw this on your website and I was like, oh my gosh, I can understand this.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
So thank you. Thank you very much. But tell me more about this. How did it come to be? And
great question. So I was hanging out with my son, Killian McMann, the professional illustrator and graphic designer, and my wife, Lisa. And we were talking about the upcoming release of Mysterious. This was months ago. And talking about, well, what are some creative ways that we can promote this series? And what are some things we can do to get kids engaged and help them to really understand and be interested in the series? And that's when I believe it was my son who came up with the idea. We had talked about drawings or something like that, obviously, because he's a wonderful artist. And I think it was him that came up with the idea. Oh, well, what if we do like a card game, like a Mysterious card game? Because we first were talking about trading cards, and then he was like, well, what if we make them more like Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, where it's an actual game? And I loved that idea. I didn't know a ton about it. He had been a huge Pokemon fan, collected all the cards and everything when he was younger. And so I kind of just said, all right, for this book, I want these monsters featured. For this one, I want this monster featured. Go forth and do your thing. And he's the one that ran with it. He did the designs. He did the drawings. He came up with all of that stuff, the hit points and the health points and all of this stuff that I don't completely understand either. But we came up with that idea. He came up with the proofs for them. We pitched them to Penguin. Penguin loved the idea. So they got on board and helping us with some of the production side of things. Mm-hmm. And so now I use them as giveaways at my bookstore events. So I'll go into schools, promote the series, talk to kids about writing and reading and getting them excited about reading and writing and hopefully about my series. And then I talk about the cards where if you come to my book parties at my local bookstore, like Blue Cypress, if we ever have a book event there, then if you come to my signings, then you get a free Monsterius card. And if you buy this book, you get another free card. And if you buy that book, you get a different free card, and you can collect these cards and use them to battle your friends. And it's so funny because I just thought of, hey, this is just something fun that's a giveaway at my book events. But what's been amazing is as I've gone out and done all these school events now, and this is just, I talk about this at the end of my presentation, like, hey, I've got a book party at this local bookstore. You should come out and see me. And if you do, you get this Monsterius card. And then I go to questions at the end, and I've got all these kids going, excuse me, what? No, where can we get these cards if we can't come to the party? And I'm like, oh, well, nowhere. I mean, they're just giveaways for a party. And I've had that question so many times that now I finally broke down and I started telling kids, okay, I'm going to talk to my son. We're going to try to figure out a way to like bundle these cards and put them up on my website where you can buy them or something, because there's been so much interest in just these cards.
Just the cards. Well, I mean, it's a thing. And as the series grows, the cards are going to have to grow, because then you're going to have to collect them all, right? Is that...
Yeah, there's currently 2 cards for the first book, and then there's going to be 1 card each for each of the subsequent books. There's these 2 books that are out now, and then a 3rd book is coming out August 22. That's called Terror in Shadow Canyon, and that's about 5 hikers who are lost in a remote wilderness and are stalked by a flesh-eating monster. And then there's book 4 coming out in January of 24, and that's called The Beast of Skull Rock, about 2 twins who... Hey, I did work twins.
There you go.
Twins try to save their grandfather's spooky Cabinet of Curiosities museum from a rampaging were hyena. So there'll be a card to go along with those books. And so, yeah, the kids can collect all the cards. And now maybe we'll make more cards because they apparently are popular with kids.
If my son and his friends are any indication, and all the kids you visited, I don't think the cards are going to go away. If you keep doing books, you have to keep doing cards.
100%. I think the cards are going to eclipse the books. They're like, yeah, the book. Talk about the cards.
Right. Well, and you never know. That's the weird way the world works. Like once the series, maybe you tap that out. We're going to tap it out at 10 or 15, way down there.
Right.
Then you can just keep on coming. The card game will have a life of its own, and you just create. That'll be the true legacy that goes generations on. Will be this card game, and you're like, why? But that'll be it.
Hey, if that's what happens, I'll take it.
Amazing. Well, Matt, I want to thank you very much for joining me for Book Banter. It's been fun talking to you.
Oh, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for having me, Raina. I loved it.
Absolutely. And everyone, thank you for watching. Nicole, thank you for your comments. Grab Matt's books. I'm putting another link in the comments. We have signed book plates at the bookstore. So if you order them through the link on our website, or you come in or give us a call, you will get a signed book plate with your book. And have a lovely evening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.